What is going on, everyone? I am Zach, and today I wanted to take a look back at all the tracks Frank Ocean has dropped on Blonded Radio over the course of the year. Frank came through with the W last year and dropped two amazing projects, Blonde and Endless, if you don't know. And before that, he dropped Channel Orange in 2012. So he made us wait 4 years between projects. So I kind of figured after Blonde and Endless that we'd have another sort of Frank drought for a while, but he came through for us this year and he's dropped about 7 new tracks on Blonded Radio, which is his Apple Music radio show. They're not scheduled, honestly. He keeps telling me they're scheduled, but they get delayed, they get postponed, there's months droughts in between, but look, I'm just happy to have new Frank Ocean to talk about. Rumor has it that Blonded 07 is the last episode of Blonded, and I've let it sit for a few months. Blonded 07 was a while ago now, but I've let it sit and I've kind of gone through all those tracks ad nauseum at this point, so I figured it's time to sit down and just kind of rank the Blonded tracks from best to worst, see where we're at. But first, we've got to go through a couple of rules. There's 7 episodes of Blonded, so we're going to do the top 7 songs. Now, there were some kind of like remixes and features in there as well. I'm not going to count those for the most part. And there's a couple of alternate versions with like extra features on them. Not going to really count those either, so we're just going to go through top 7 songs from each of the Blonded episodes. But that is a good point to make though. If you didn't know there were like alternate versions of like Chanel and Lens, there's a version of Chanel with A$AP Rocky verse and there's a version of Lens with a Travis Scott verse at the end. So if you want to check those out, go for it. They're both okay. I don't think they're as good as the originals, but they are there and they're serviceable enough. And there's about 4 versions of Provider if you want to count all the alternate versions of Provider. We're not going to count those. We're just going to count the official ones that are released on Apple Music right now. So without further ado, let's just get into it. Otherwise we'll be here all day just talking about semantics, about, songs, and we don't need that. Lens is one of those songs that is probably the song from the Blonded singles that grew on me the most. I do feel like it's the biggest risk of the songs. It's got a very minimal instrumental with a good bit of auto-tune on Frank's voice. And I reckon this must be the space reggae that John Mayer warned us about earlier this year or late last year when he said Frank was working on new music. It's definitely an interesting track, and I like the message behind it, like Frank's kind of telling us he's finally feeling confident with who he is, which is good for him. I mean, I'm glad to hear it, but sonically, as a song, it kind of falls a little flat for me. It's nice when the drums finally kick in, but overall it's just a little flat. And, I don't really want that much auto-tune on Frank's voice, and it's a little slow. So number 7, Lens. Number 6, Slide. It's a Frank Ocean, Migos, and Calvin Harris track, which honestly wasn't something that I knew that I wanted, but I can't deny this shit really came together. It's got trademark Frank, and he really shines through with his pitched up vocals and a verse and chorus about his favorite subject, materialism. Over a smooth Calvin Harris tropical beat featuring verses from 2/3 of the Migos, who, let's be honest, they're the hottest group of 2017. And hopefully that, combined with the Calvin Harris beat, put more mainstream eyes on Frank that weren't there before. Slide was definitely one of my favorite pop hits from the year, but still only number 6 on the list. So if that doesn't speak to the quality of what Frank's putting out, I honestly don't know what does. After a track with Migos, I honestly didn't know what track Frank would show up on next. My heart wanted a Yachty collab, mainly just for a meme, but instead he showed up on a track with Rocky, Quavo, Cardi, and Lil Uzi Vert. Raph, for the most part, is your standard posse cut banger with, let's be honest, pretty shallow lyrics. But it doesn't stop it from being a hype as fuck track though. As much as I don't care for a lot of the features on the track, I'm not going to deny it, they all bring the appropriate energy for a song like this. Especially Rocky and Frank, who, let's be real, they're two of the smoothest guys in music right now. If there ain't a Frank collab on this new Rocky album, by the way, we are confirmed living in the worst timeline. Either way, Raph doesn't have the lyrical complexity or depth that you'd expect from a Frank song, but it's still a fun song, and I'm sure he probably had fun making it, taking a step back from, his typical deeper cuts, and just kind of dropping a couple of fun verses with his friends. And for that, Raph takes the 5th spot on the list. Provider, for now, I'm treating it as the last Blonded release. It's another one of those tracks that kind of falls into the space reggae shit John Mayer was talking about, mainly because I don't really know what other genre to put it in. But the structure and genre as a whole for the track is very fluid and constantly changes. It doesn't really abide by any real musical structures, and because of that, I don't really think it clicked with me at first. The fact that there was 5 versions of it didn't really help either. Lyrically, though, it's a return to form for this list. It's personal and romantic, and the auto-tune and beat sounds more like a refined version of Lens. But it's also worrying because he talks about like in the chorus and in a couple of the verses, that he might change his life for this person. And earlier on in the radio show, there was an interlude where he was talking about returning to school to pick up a trade. So honestly, there's a small part of me that wouldn't be surprised if this could just be the last Frank song ever, like the end of the road for Frank tracks. And it's a beautiful song, and it's definitely an alright song to end off on, but if you're like me, you really can't get enough Frank, and this song really personifies who Frank is as an artist, and I hope there's more. Honestly, I hope there's more. If you can give me an album of this, that'd be great. And for that, Provider takes the number, what is this? Number 4? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, for that, this takes the 4th spot on the list. Provider, Frank Ocean, check it out. Frank Ocean, Jay-Z, and Tyler, the Creator. On paper, it looks like a wet dream of a lineup to me. And honestly, for the most part, it doesn't disappoint. Frank kills his shit in both the chorus and the verse, and Tyler's verse was really solid, and it was the first real look we had into this new mature Tyler that would get on Flower Boy. The Hove verse, though, I see a lot of people clowning it, but honestly, I don't mind it. Is it good? Probably not. Does it add much to the track? Probably not. Can I explain why I like it? Not really. I don't know. The best way I can put it is it's kind of like the foreplay before you get to having sex. It's not exactly necessary, but it helps with the mood and the energy, you know? You know what I mean. Good news is, though, if you don't like it, there is a second version without the features and an extra Frank verse. And I knew I wouldn't talk about the alternate versions in this list, but honestly, this feels like it's definitely one of the standout ones. So, and it's if not as good, probably a little better than the features. I prefer the featured version, but a lot of people prefer the solo version. Either way, both excellent tracks, both checking out, and for that reason, they're number 3 on the list. Slide On Me was my favorite track off Endless, so I guess it's technically not new, but there's enough new here to validate its position on the list, coming in at number 2. First of all, this is a studio track from Endless, and hopefully it's not the last. Its very existence of this song opens up the possibility of a full CDQ release of Endless. But that's not even all that's new here. Young Thug drops by and somehow fits on the track perfectly. He's never been known for his deep lyricism, but the delivery and flow that he brings to this track over the beats, it sounds really nice, and the sort of like fragile tone of his voice fits the theme of the song perfectly. And Frank on this track strikes the right medium between rapping and singing. Side of Me was my favorite track on Endless, and the changes that have been made to this version make it better, in my opinion anyway, make it better than what was on the original. And for that, it takes a 2nd spot on the list. Finally, and I'm sure most of you agree with me, the number 1 Blonded radio single is none other than Chanel. The shock alone from this song existing is enough to earn it a high spot on the list. The song embodied hope for consistent new Frank in 2017. Hell, even in the song he mentions playing 2017 ideas off a Walkman. Disregarding all of that, the song speaks for itself. This is the perfect combination of singing Frank and rapping Frank. People are just going to have to start to admit that Frank raps better than most of your favorite rappers, and this song is proof of that. Top form here lyrically and flow-wise, the way he uses the Chanel logo and the company itself to draw parallels between his relationship with duality and bisexuality, while turning the typical materialistic nature of hip-hop culture on its head is phenomenal. Just phenomenal. It was honestly the easiest song to place on the list. Some of the other positions could probably be interchanged to differ depending on the day or mood, but without a doubt, Chanel will always be number 1 on this list. And with that, I'd like to thank you all for taking the time to check out this video. Let me know in the comments below how you rank the tracks, or even better, let me know on Twitter. You can follow me at Iam_Zax, and you can keep up with the channel at WetDuckProd to get notifications when new videos drop. If you like this, you might want to just go ahead and subscribe, because I'm sure we'll talk about Frank again in the future. I'm always thinking about Frank, so I'm sure he's going to pop up. Hopefully sooner than later, honestly. If we can get Blonded 08, I can revise this list maybe. Go ahead and check out some of my other videos. There's the top 5 albums of the first half of 2017. It's another video about music that I recorded sitting on the side of a highway. The metagame for that video is if you can count how many times you can hear just trucks and cars whiz by me. Or, similarly, if you want me to compare more music, I have a video where I compare Acid Rap and Calling Book by Chance the Rapper to see which one I like better and for what reasons. That's all for now. Until next time, have a good one.